Hi everyone, in this module we're going to be talking about planning tools. We'll go ahead and put this video up here. I'm not going to play it in this recording, but you're free to go back and watch it at your leisure. But please make sure to go back and view it. It does give you a good overview of some different planning tips that we're going to be referencing throughout the lecture today. Now, there are two broad plans or two broad types of categories of plans that you're going to be using throughout your career. One of those are repeat use plans, and these deal mainly with policies and procedures, things that you've encountered in the past that you've kind of had to set up a policy for, so you do use them over and over again. The second type of category are your single use plans, and these are more for your overall projects and budgets, things like that you use once and you're done with. You kind of discard them after you use them. Now, when I say policies are used to express an organization's general response to a situation, what I'm really talking about and what I mean is there's something that's happened in the past that the organization has had to base the policy on, so that they know something will be encountered again based on what's happened in the past. So the organization goes to create a policy. So how you can relate this back to maybe a personal experience of yours, think about our syllabus for the course. There's different policies set out in the syllabus that are important to note. We have things regarding missed assignments, or late assignments, missed exams, things that I know are going to come up every semester. So we have a policy to address those, so that it's important to maintain a certain level of consistency, and the policies enable you to do that. So if you think about it, policies really do help to empower your employees, and they help just by granting that level of authority and putting that trust in your employees to give them that decision-making authority to go out and make decisions for the organization. And it also helps to ensure there's some type of uniformity, some type of consistency that exists across the organization as a whole. Now, what I'll ask you to do, the link down here for employee empowerment, take a second, go out to that link and view that video. And we'll talk about the video a little bit more on the next slide, but please make sure to go out and view that video on employee empowerment. So before we get started on this slide, just a review, or just to talk a little bit about the employee empowerment video on the previous slide. I know it's a little cheesy, a little silly, but it does get the point across, and it does communicate that universal truth. That when people are empowered to make decisions because of policies in place, it really helps to expedite some issues that can come up. So, again, what does it mean to be empowered? You're granting authority to your employees to make those decisions, and it helps you keeps you from becoming that micromanager, because in the end, micromanagement and people who do unfortunately practice micromanagement become burnt out because they are overwhelmed with all the day-to-day intricacies of the business. They're trying to make decisions for everyone and everything instead of practicing delegation through policy and practice that granting of authority. Now, as we're on to this next slide on where do policies come from and why do we have them, we have policies regarding almost every aspect in healthcare. We have policies around reimbursement for Medicare, Medicaid. Certain tests, certain diagnoses have to be in place before we'll receive reimbursement as a facility. We have fire policies regarding smoke detectors, sprinkler systems, and a lot of our policies in healthcare are imposed policies. So guys, I know I can almost guarantee that when you start your career, you are going to have some things that come up that are not going to be addressed in a policy, mainly because about 95% of what you're going to be doing in that administrative role in healthcare in particular is going to be dealing with people. So think about what we've talked about over the past couple of lectures. You know, you're going to be dealing with patients, with their families, with your team members, with the community, with vendors, all sorts of people, and not everything is going to be able to be addressed by a set policy or procedure. So if that happens, you know, you have two courses of action to take, and they're listed here. You know, the first to determine if you have any policies that are kind of applicable to the situation, and then you know, with your superior, your one-up, kind of come to an agreement on what the appropriate action might be. But the important thing here, guys, is to remember that you need to be consistent, because if you deviate, you're going to start setting a precedent, which can get you in a little bit of trouble down the line in terms of employee laws and regulations. You know, so for example, we have down here at the bottom, you have an employee come to you and ask you for a leave of absence to care for a sick neighbor. You know, very good-natured of them, wanting to help out this neighbor of theirs, but you have to go back and look at the policy for the organization and look at the Family Medical Leave Act, which defines a family for a leave of absence, you know, kind of as a parent, stepchildren, children, grandparents, things of that nature. And so a neighbor would not be considered family, and here you would have to deny that leave of absence because it would not apply. So the whole point here, guys, is you don't want to deviate from what the policy says, and you want to make sure that you're staying consistent from decision to decision. And let's relate this back to our syllabus again. You know, I know unique cases are going to come up throughout the semester, but it's important that I remain consistent from student to student in terms of the policy and how I enact the policy in the courses, and how the university enacts their policies. So an appeal policy, like it says here in the scenario, you know, you try to get some type of exemption. It may be due to an extenuating circumstance. Maybe this person in this scenario is the only person, like it says, you have working night shift. So you can kind of make an appeal to a policy for some type of extenuating circumstance. So we move on to procedures, and these come after policies. So it goes policy, procedure, and they really list and detail out how you need to carry out the policy overall. So we have policies, procedures, and then our third aspect are going to be our methods, or our how-tos. These are really more of our standing plans that are going to detail one specific part of our procedure overall. So it goes in order from policy, procedure, down to methods, and then we move into rules, which is the fourth part of that. So policy, procedure, method, and then your rules. Your rules are very important in terms of, you know, detailing out the actions that are either required or forbidden, and it helps you as an administrator and you in that managerial role to make things more black and white, to kind of take the gray out of the situation. So we're going to talk for a second just about the difference between programs and projects. Programs are more, so when you think about a program, I want you to think about it's more single use, it's specific to the organization, a little more complex, and you have an activity that's used once and then generally discarded. So our examples here, we have, you know, either some type of awareness program, or maybe we have a facility that's wanting to add in an assisted living facility within its system. projects fit in under programs, and they kind of fall under programs and detail out how you're going to carry out one aspect of the program. So back to our examples with the awareness program, you may have a 5K walk as part of that awareness event. Or with the assisted living facility, you may be trying to secure employment or secure workers to work in that location. And we talked about it a couple modules ago, but the Gantt chart has come up again. I know this one's kind of silly. It details out how to put a teddy bear together, what the steps are. But you know, it really displays out how to use a Gantt chart appropriately. So activity, you know, you may have the 1 through 13 may be steps, they may be days, but you know, the first one you're going to do is cut the fur, and that's going to be step 1 through 2. Completed work, and you can kind of show progress throughout that process. The next couple slides, guys, there's an activity about how to redo a hospital wing. I really want to encourage you to walk yourself through this activity. Now, it's not for a grade, but I want to encourage you to walk through and create a Gantt chart over the next couple slides, just to make sure that you have a well-rounded understanding of what a Gantt chart is and how to use it. And I'll scroll through the next couple slides and we'll end with the Gantt chart.